Hope you're all doing well. It's been a while since I did a live stream. Hope you all understand. I know there's a lot going on right now. Ruth Bader Ginsburg finally died. An event that was considered, inevitable and ever more likely, and was basically preordained to cause a lot of problems, and indeed it will. But there'll be lots of time to talk about that because there's going to be the whole process of the confirmations and all that. So people have already started asking me about it. I don't really want to talk about that right now. So what I want to talk about tonight is something a little bit more personal. Still might be interesting to a lot of you, but yeah, if you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know that, hey Jim, you'll know that, this year, starting this spring, I made a series of videos, 2 so far, about hypnosis. The first one I think came out in May. It's got a title like Hypnosis Actually Works, or Hypnotism Actually Works, something like that. And they had another one that came out in July called The Dark Side of Hypnosis. And that really kind of marks a significant thing in my development with the thing. So what's happened lately is it's gotten a lot worse than I thought it was. The situation was way, way worse than I thought it was when I made the Dark Side of Hypnosis video. So just kind of for an overview, back in April, it might have been the last week of March, I started talking with a guy at Grindr who said he was into hypnosis. It was a kink of his that he'd had for a long time. And I was interested, and in early April, he put me in touch with a gay guy who was into hypnosis himself, who said that he'd be willing to teach me and to give me some experiences, which he did. And he hypnotized me, and it was a super intense experience. It felt amazing. It was incredible. And I was absolutely obsessed with it for the next at least 2 or 3 months. And during that period, he taught me how to do it. I started doing it to other guys. But the way that I was taught was not like, here's a class, we'll do this. The way I was taught is that I was hypnotized, and then I was literally, and like this was the actual term that we used, brainwashed. And I, within a month, I started doing guys myself, and within a month after that, I was pretty good at it. I was doing it very, very regularly. I was really obsessed with that. In fact, if you watch someone just commented like a week ago on the Hypnosis is Real video, I say something along the lines of, if I could, I would do this all the time. That's what I say. I would do this all the time, never mind whatever other interests I had, jiu-jitsu, gym, reading, hiking, hooking up, all that stuff. I would do hypnosis all the time if I could, is what I say in that video. At some point in early July, I started to go much deeper in my sessions and realize that I was getting to a stage where it would be difficult for me to know what was and was not real, for 2 reasons. One was that I would I could be given hallucinations, which I, as far as I am aware, was not able to do earlier. And the other thing was I was pretty sure that I could be given prompted amnesia, therefore for wiping out memories of things that had been done, at the very least under hypnosis, if not altogether. I disengaged at that point from the guy who was hypnotizing me, who I'm not going to name here, very deliberately. And that was really good. And I walked away, and that's why I made that video on the dark side of hypnosis. However, there was a small problem, and that was I hypnotized a lot of guys in that amount of time, mostly one-offs, a lot of friends, acquaintances, people I knew on Grindr. A lot, like I said, most of them, they were one-offs. Occasionally, they would perform regular things, guys that I would regularly, and sometimes very regularly. And the problem was that the type of hypnosis that I was familiar with, the goal of my hypnosis really was to push the amount of control as far as possible. Obviously, that can seem very innocent in the moment. When you're testing your limits on what you can do with somebody, the first things you're going to do are going to be very simple physical tests, sticking their hands together, keeping their eyes closed, sticking them to their seat, making them laugh at a funny word, or forget, and then it escalates into things like forgetting a number, forgetting their name, making them think they have a different name, and then it can start to push into personality adjustments, sexual adjustments, perceptual adjustments, and then into a realm where you can start giving them things like post-hypnotic suggestions, which are you give them a suggestion and then you end the session and then that thing still holds. So like a real common one is to give them a trigger phrase, something that if you say, so normally you have to go through a process to hypnotize somebody, and some degree of voluntarism is usually necessary for that. It's possible to surreptitiously hypnotize somebody, but generally it's much easier if they're willing to go along with it. And with the trigger word, though, you can just say the phrase or the word or whatever it is, or even an action, if I grab your ear, your nose, or whatever, and the subject will just drop into a trance. And I mean, the trigger can be anything you can describe to the mind that the mind can recognize. So it could be a phrase, or a touch, an action, a feeling, a sense, a voice, sound of somebody's voice, whatever it is. And so I did that a lot. And when I would hypnotize guys, I would push them to the limits. And people obviously vary in their suggestibility. And some guys, I think 15 to 20% of guys, I could get them to the point where they would say, believe, or do pretty much whatever I would tell them in, 20 minutes or less, sometimes 5 minutes. Okay, now that's not most people. Most people won't be that suggestible right off the bat. But then, and there's about 10% of people, or maybe a little bit less, that are very, very difficult to hypnotize. Maybe not impossible, but practically speaking, from the point of view of regular, they'd have to be drug induced and sleep deprived and yada, 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 yada. But for everybody else, the whatever, 75%, 70, 80% of other people, they're suggestible enough that they can be hypnotized relatively easy. They will not accept every suggestion right away, but that takes time. So an example is I have a friend that I've been doing, and he was very easy to induce the first time, but he could only do physical things. I couldn't make him forget his name. I couldn't make him forget any numbers. I couldn't, change any sensations about him, but I could, stick his hands together, stuff like that, make him relax, put him in a trance, a state where you just are focused and not really thinking. This is kind of a very meditative state. From what I've read about meditation, it seems like people work in meditation for 20 years and they can never get to this state where they're not distracted by their own thoughts. And with hypnosis, you can go into a state where you have no conscious thoughts. I mean, your brain's obviously still on, your amygdala's running and all that, and your body functions continue, but you are just blank. You're completely you have no thoughts that you can articulate, think, whatever. It's a crazy, crazy experience. But after a few weeks with this guy, I got to the point where I was suddenly able to do much more than that. Erase his memories of a day, of a week, of a person, myself, of skills, and change his sexual desires. So this was a guy, I was like, I don't want to have sex. I don't want to have sex. And I got to the point where I could say, you want me to fuck you? And he'd be like, let's do it. So that category of people is most people. They're going to start at 1 and go up. So that raises a whole bunch of ethical questions, and I talk about them in the videos that I uploaded earlier. And there's a whole bunch of very interesting and legitimate questions to be asked about consent, and is it possible, and what's necessary, and I may talk ancillarily about them in this video, but I have covered it before, and I don't have a definite answer for all of that. But the other problem with what I was doing, other than aggressively trying to turn everyone I met into a slave, was that the guy who trained me, part of my programming, and I remember, I know some of my programming, and it involved, I had to, that I was a slave, I had to obey my master, I had to, and I say this in the one video in May, I actually say it. I actually say, I'm a slave and I like it, and I go into a trance in the video. Subscribers of mine, some of you guys actually reached out to me and said, "You're acting really strange. Are you all right?" And I was like, "It's fine. Hypnosis is just very intense. It's not a big deal." The other thing that happened, though, is a lot of hypnotists also saw that video and reached out to me, and every one of them, and they came from all over the world. There was one from Poland, one from Ireland, from all over the US. They reached out to me, and every one of them said, "You got programmed and brainwashed. You're dropping into trances. You have missing memories. You have all these facial tics that are indicative of heavy programming." And all of them were very concerned. And I blew them all off, and I was like, "I feel fine. It's fine. I don't mind. I like being a slave. It's the best thing ever." It's very weird even saying that out loud now, but that's exactly how I felt and how I thought. And that wasn't bad enough, but the other thing I was supposed to do, in addition to hypnotize as many guys as possible, is I was looking for guys that my master liked. He has a type, and I knew what that type was. And when I found guys like that, my job was to both hypnotize them and then send them on the way towards him. And that happened only a few times. There were several guys he was interested in. Most of them, for either logistical or common sense reasons, avoided that. So there was one guy early on who he was very interested in, and this guy said, "I don't mind talking to you." He said, "I trust you, I like you, but I don't know this other guy, so I really don't want to do anything with him." So he gets an A+ for common sense, and thankfully for him, it didn't go anywhere from there. But other people weren't so lucky. And at one point in the summer, I met somebody, and they turned out to be an excellent subject, very, very suggestible, probably the most suggestible person I met in person off the bat. And I turned this person over to my master, and he has kind of had him in his thrall ever since. Now, I wasn't sure how bad it was. I suspected a lot of things, but of course at the time I was myself deeply brainwashed, and the entire thing actually excited me. I was excited that I was fulfilling my programming and whatnot. After I started to deprogram, and one of the things is if you stop getting hypnotized, the suggestions will fade. It depends on the suggestion and the person and things like that, but they will fade with time. And that happened with me, but there was this nagging concern for this one individual in particular. And I knew something was wrong. I had my suspicions. I couldn't prove it until this week. And I talked to this guy, and I really pushed him. And the feedback he gave me was the most unambiguous evidence of brainwashing you will ever see. Now, and you may not see that evidence because, well, it's quite a quandary, right? What do you do when that happens? What are you supposed to do? You've got somebody who's under someone else's control, and really the only way to get rid of that control is to have the person who established all that programming to deprogram them. I guess if you could cut them off, that would also do it, but it's very hard to do that in the digital age. So some of you, if you paid really close attention this week, might have seen a glimmer of a video pop up earlier this week. I recorded over 8 hours of video where I systematically went over every single Skype and Grindr conversation with my former master and this other guy. Every single thing. And I created 8 hours of video, and I uploaded. They're all unlisted, so you can't watch them right now. They are unlisted. You cannot watch them right now. And I contacted my former master with a few other people. And I said, "You need to let him go, or all of this is going public right now. Everything about you, everything that we know will be out there. We'll spread this everywhere." And he freaked the fuck out and agreed to do it. And we had a mutual call where he deprogrammed the person in question and, released him. And the videos are there to guarantee his good behavior. So I am not releasing them now. If he's watching this, they're not going to be released as long as he's good. I'll keep my end of the bargain as long as he keeps his end of the bargain. But the other thing, by way of explanation, I had to go back, which I'd never done, and actually reread every single text from April until August with this guy. And the thing is, when I started, I didn't know anything about hypnosis or mind control. And the thing is, now I'm actually really good at it. Um, like, so that's actually related to this on my Facebook. But I was able to recognize what was happening in a way that I didn't earlier. And the thing I was able to recognize is I'm a brainwasher myself. I know how to do it. I really bit into this. Some of the hypnotists who saw, I shared the dialogue with a couple other experienced hypnotists who are well established. And I was told by everyone who I asked that I had the second worst brainwashing they'd ever seen, and the first worst brainwashing was the other guy in question. Now, this was really not very good for me to hear. I still feel really, really guilty about that. I've had to rehash all of this for the last week. It was in the back of my mind for 2 months, but one of the hypnotists said that I was basically a monster, that I would not, he didn't mean it like, he's like, you are so obsessed with this and you're so aggressive with this, and you are like dangerous because you are so eager and able to brainwash people. And so that was a wake-up call. That was scary. And I had to go back. And then the other thing is just I got to look and watch with understanding eyes, day by day by day, watching myself getting mind controlled by this guy, little by little by little. And it was very interesting. It was very surreal. It was heart-wrenching. It was confusing. I felt betrayed. I've never experienced anything even remotely like that. But you can see the very first message. This guy, we're talking, and I can already see that he's lacing his comments with pre-suggestions. You're putting ideas into the dialogue that your mind picks up, and you don't recognize it as being hypnotic, but it in fact is. And I do this all the time. Whenever I hypnotize somebody, I don't start, by like slapping their face or whatever. I start with a conversation, and it sounds like a friendly conversation. But what they don't know is I'm filling it with all these hints and allusions and suggestions that start to affect how they think and what they expect and what they think is going to happen. And I could see this was happening the very first message with this guy. And then it's funny because in the text, you can see the text, and then we'll go to an audio call, and then when it comes back, the fact that I had all this time to be through audio, brainwashed. And I am now positive that large bits of my memory were erased because there's evidence of programming that is not in the text. Like there's evidence that I was given triggers. I was never told of any triggers. He never said, okay, I'm going to give you a trigger for this. I'm going to give you a trigger for this. But as I read through the dialogue, it was obvious that I had triggers. Probably several, probably multiple ones, including just his voice. His voice alone would trigger me. And I knew that anytime we would talk, even if we were talking whatever, it would just be like the very first things is like, it's not like you're my slave. It's you love listening to my voice. You're always focused on my voice. You love to focus on my voice. And you're like, yeah, really? Tell me, wow. And that's exactly what happens. You get super focused on their voice, on whatever they're typing. And so it was just this, I don't know, it seems like an incredible documentation of this happening. And I would love to show everybody, but I can't for now. As long as he follows his end of the bargain, I'll follow my end of the bargain, and the stuff won't be shown by anybody. I'll talk about it generically, but I'm not going to name names. I'm not going to give away any identities until that's absolutely necessary. But I'll say, it's the other scary stuff is how, the stuff that I said. If I ever upload these, I'm going to look really terrible. There's stuff I said and did, not that it was illegal, but that it was creepy in the extreme. I mean, we're talking about mind controlling as many people as possible, teaching them to be hypnotists, and then having them mind control even more people, and brainwashing everyone we can. Everyone really wants to be brainwashed. They just don't know it yet, but we'll teach them what they really need to know. And I will tell you, I lived that life for months. That was in the background, and the people who know me in real life were like, you were obsessed. You were talking about this all the time. Hypnosis this, hypnosis that, all day, every day. That's all I thought about. That's all I really cared about. And COVID kind of helped a little bit in the sense that, like, gym was closed, jiu-jitsu was closed. They both closed like 2 or 3 weeks before this started. So this was kind of like, oh, you're kind of bored, so jump in with this. I'd be interested to know how it would have developed if all that had been open. But the thing is, all that did open in June, and I didn't go. Like, I didn't go to the gym. I didn't go to jiu-jitsu. I was like, fuck it, I have to do this. This is what my program is, to do this. When I wasn't hypnotizing people, I was watching, videos of hypnosis. I was watching stage shows and street shows and reading books and like learning and learning, studying, doing more and more and more and more. I was on Skype all the time. I was on Grindr. I was on Snapchat. I was hypnotizing as many people as I possibly could, and every single one of them, I was getting them as far as I could down that line. I wanted as much control as I possibly could. And it's just surprising how much you can get. Now, you can't get everything from everybody. There's people that I got basically nothing from. Wasn't that common, but it certainly happens. And there are people that I got a little bit from. A little, like their arm raises a little bit, whatever. But by and large, you can get quite a lot, especially if you have time. This week has been fucking crazy for me. I haven't slept. I didn't fucking jerk off for a week. It's been yeah, I'm getting a message. Sounds like I'm watching your live stream. In retrospect, what you're saying is exactly true. Look, and this is not to say hypnosis is necessarily always bad. That's not true. Hypnosis is incredibly powerful. It's incredibly interesting. Its potential in therapy is huge. You can't cure everything. Like, if you have syphilis, you're screwed. But like, there's lots of things it can help you with. It can be really fun. It can be really helpful. I've helped people with weight problems. I've helped people with anxiety problems. And I'm not even a therapist. I'm just doing this for free. So like, and I always tell people, like, I'm not a therapist, but if you want me to do something for free, I will. I didn't even care. I didn't want money. I just wanted to practice. I wanted to practice on everybody that I could. There were lots of people. Like, I would call up guys. Like, there's a whole bunch of guys who I'm not interested in sexually, but who have crushes on me. And I really don't like to patronize those people and waste their time, because I'm not really interested in them. But no, when I wanted to hypnotize, I was like, here, come on over. And I hypnotized all those dudes. And disappointed most of them because they wanted me to fuck them. I didn't even want to have sex with them. I was just like, I just want to practice. I want to practice. I want to get better. I want to hypnotize as many guys as possible. More. By May, the start of May, I actually messaged this. That must have been some kind of inflection point in my training, because I said, I literally can't stop thinking about this. It's the only thing I care about. I want to hypnotize people all day, every day. And when you look at the text, like the brainwashing is just obvious now. And like, the other thing that really helps with this process is that it's possible to hypnotize somebody through text, something a lot of people don't realize or don't understand. Usually not so easy the first time, but once somebody has been hypnotized, it's really easy just to get them to think about it. If you just tell someone, think about what it feels like to go into a trance, remember what that was like, take a deep breath, focus on it, that can drop somebody. And so then what happens is you go into a trance, and then you're in what's called a waking state, where your eyes are open and you're like conscious, but your filter, your critical faculty is lowered so much that whatever you're told, you're just like, oh, all right. And so there were long sections where I'm typing and he's typing, and he's telling me, this is your programming, this is what you're going to do. And you can see, not that you guys can see it now, but like, what happens is you don't really have a lot to say. You just say yes, 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 and then you repeat a lot. And so that he would say something like, you're really focused on everything I have to say, and I'll be like, yes, I'm very focused on what you have to say. And then he'd be like, good slave. I'm like, I'm a good slave. On and on and on. And what was strange looking at it is now I recognized how I had done that to people, right? They get to this point where I'll tell them, like, When I snap my fingers, you're going to feel happy and alert and awake. And they'll be like, how do you feel? I'm like, I feel happy, alert, and awake. And they don't even know that you just said that. They're just repeating your words, but not knowing and feeling like those are their own, like springing forth from their own mind. Let's see. Yeah. Anyway, it's been fucking crazy. I have never had an experience like this. The phone call with this guy was absolutely nuts. Like I've never been that angry in my life, and it was really, really, really intense. And I completely broke down after. Like I am convinced I'm going to have PTSD or something. Like this going back and looking over it was very traumatic. And like, I still think some of the programming is still in place too. Like I still feel certain things. Like my complete mindset is different. Like I can go into a trance so easy now. It's ridiculous. It's funny to me that like my whole life up to this point, I'm 37, up to this point, I never got hypnotized. And now I can do it anytime that I want. Almost anything, even just the word can make it happen. And it's like my mental, and it's not, I mean, people say your brain is mush. That's not true. You're actually like really focused and really relaxed. It's a strange, but you're just totally focused on the one thing. And that one thing is the hypnotist. And if the hypnotist tells you that you're a chicken, then that's what you think. And if the hypnotist tells you your job is to brainwash as many other people as possible, then that's what you think. And that's what I thought, and that's what I did. And I was scarily good at it. That's, again, something that everyone I've had take a look at this have said, you are a fucking monster. This is terrifying. You are super aggressive with this. And the style of hypnosis that I learned that I do is like, I'm going straight for your mind. Like it's not even like sexual kink. There's a whole genre of like hypno kink that I just completely skipped and switched to like brainwashed army of hypno slaves. And I was part of that and an active, very active participant in that. And it's, I kind of knew, look, I knew something was wrong in July, but then going back and rereading everything, it's surreal how bad it was. And look, I don't want to, it's not like I'm totally innocent here either. Like I jumped in with 2 feet, like, a lot of the suggestions, that doesn't mean that they came from nothing. Like the idea, like I was interested in hypnosis in the first place. You know, I liked to be dominant. The idea that, I mean, I don't know how many people will admit it, but like the idea that you can snap your fingers and make somebody do whatever you want, I find that appealing. Like that raises ethical questions that I think are serious, and I do try and like guide my actions along those, but like it certainly has an appeal. And so like that was part of it. It wasn't just that I got programmed. That amped it up by some degree, maybe a huge degree. I don't know. I don't know if it's even possible to see how much. But what was ears how powerful it was, because I've never been submissive and I've never had slave fantasies ever, and yet here I was literally like, I'm a slave and I'm okay with it. You can see it in the video in May. I say it explicitly, like it's fine. I like it. I like being a slave. And the first hypnotist who talked to me, they would bring it up and I would get defensive, like back off. I like being a slave. I love it. Don't stop me. I love being a slave. Don't, and like I blocked some of them. Like some of them I was like, get away. You're trying to interfere with my identity, which my identity was a hypno slave, you know? So like definitely a lot of it faded, because when I listened to, you know, my master, now I don't go into a trance and I don't feel any of that stuff. If he used any triggers against me, I didn't notice. So it's better, but oh my God. And the thing is, the guy that I put into this is, I'm well above average when it comes to suggestibility. Well above average. But there are categories above me, and I found several guys in those categories, at least 5 or 6, maybe 7 or 8 guys who were, you know, suggestible enough that you could make them believe almost anything. You know, a lot of stuff. I'm Chewbacca, I'm Darth Vader, I'm your twin, we're brothers, you're 12. I'm invisible. That's one, like stuff like that. Um, so hallucinations, memory loss, all that stuff, amnesia. Um, the people who are more suggestible are even at greater risk. And the thing is, the hypnotist who was training me, he had two reasons to do that. I mean, this was explicit in the programming. Once I got a little bit better, part of my programming included hypnotizing him. He likes to get hypnotized, and so I learned how to do it. I know exactly how he likes it done. I would even, but he could always, like, it might feel like I was in control, but I never was, because he always had a button that he could just flip on. I saw it happen at least twice going over the things where it looks like I'm in control, and then he uses a trigger phrase and it completely inverts, and I'm, yes sir, yeah, yes sir, whatever, whatever. And the other thing, I don't think he was sexually attracted to me. So, like, his interest in me was as a recruiter, as, a fellow hypnotist, whatever. And the guys that I presented to him were guys that he was actually, like, really sexually attracted to. And so his interest level in them, his desire to play with them and to hypnotize them would be much higher than it was for me. And so they got several additional helpings of brainwashing. And it was two of the people I showed this to, two literally vomited from the brainwashing. Not like explicit, not like here's a gory detail about some gross thing, scat or something. No, just the degree of control. This guy couldn't talk to somebody without permission. They had to defer to him for everything. They had to worship him. He's the best. He's the greatest. I owe everything to him. I'm a better person because of him. He needs me. I need him. Straight, absolute, like, cult, off the charts. And, like, I was close to that. Not quite that far, but close to that. And seeing it, it was terrifying. When I saw it, I immediately recorded everything, because I was like, this is proof. And then I didn't know what to do, so I started reaching out to people who might be able to help, and fortunately, a few of them were able to help. And then I was like, shit, this is my fault. The only reason this happened is because I found this guy, I hypnotized him, and I handed him off. And my culpability there is certainly not zero. And I said I have to save him, because, like, I put him there. I owe him at least that, if not more. And it was. It was just absolutely overwhelming, the entire experience. So anyway, yeah, let me get to your comments. Sorry, guys. That's basically it. I can't go into any more details than that, because I agree. Like I said, there are approximately 8 or 9 hours of documentation of all of this that's already on YouTube. It's just all unlisted right now, and there it will stay as long as what was agreed is kept. So. Being brainwashed me into being dedicated to force restoration. That's actually not impossible. It's fascinating to me that these things, which more commonly done with pharmaceutical neurochemical inventions, can also be done with auto visual stimuli. Yeah, I don't know how effective the pharmacological ones are. I really don't know anything about that. And the science here is just not very good. They, like, the status of hypnotism in the scientific community is kind of ambiguous, and that's understandable. I get that. Like, I'm not saying, oh, it's this perfect science that we perfectly understand. We don't. There's fundamental debates about just the most basic parts of, is it sleep? Is it like sleep? How is it different? When you go deep, what does that even mean? Does the person believe what they're doing? Are they acting it out? Or is this based on expectations? There's so many things that we don't really know. But and there's is it voluntary? Is it involuntary? I will tell you guys, if it's not involuntary, it sure feels that way. It feels like you can't control it. When you get put into a trance, it feels like you can't stop it. There were times where I tried to stop going into trances and I couldn't stop. And then you just go into this very receptive, obedient state where you're just like, and you're like a puppet or a program to be written on, and they just tell you, okay, this is what you're going to do, and you're like, okay, sounds good, that's the best, thank you, master, thank you, master. I don't know, hundreds or thousands of times I've been doing that over the last couple months. So yeah. um Manchurian candidates, yeah, I have no question that that's possible. um I'm 100% straight. Would it be possible to hypnotize me into being gay? um I think, yeah. Now it might be difficult and it might take a lot of time. So this isn't like you sit down once, but I could see them starting with just giving you an association with, you'll find guys hot or you'll find dick hot or something like that. But it would take time, but I think it's probably possible. Unplug the computer for a week. Yeah. Now, are you free? I think I am. But I also have to like be diligent because I'm also vulnerable, right? This happened once. My brain has been trained. That's the thing, is when you get hypnotized, your brain is trained and it's much easier. So when I induce a guy the first time, it may take a certain like 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And that was another thing. I got better. So like when I started, they were like 30, 40 minutes to hypnotize a guy. And then now it's more like 5 or less. And the success rate is much higher now than it was. And But then if you do a second time with somebody, even if it's weeks or months or years later, it's much easier. It's much easier. So, you just have to be on guard. I've heard some people say like it's hard, like hypnotists are hard to hypnotize because they know all the tricks or whatever. I'm like, kinda, maybe, but like if they like it or if they like, it feels great when someone's doing it and they're telling you feel good. You're like, oh, I feel great. This is amazing. Like it's the best. It's the most euphoric. Like it feels incredible. I've never done drugs, so I don't know. But it's like it feels incredible. And like the mental states you get, like I said, I don't know if I practiced meditation for 10 years or 20 years, if I could get into that egoless state that you can with hypnosis. Not that I think that that's necessarily a good thing to do, but just it's a crazy experience to have. Um, I don't know how long that guy has been going on. He told me well, I won't, for a long time. He gave specific time links, but as per our agreement, I'll shy away from saying exactly how long, but for quite a long time, decades. You should see a real mental health professional instead of these amateur hypnotists. Okay, what am I going to say? I got brainwashed by a hypnotist to enslave people? No, like I'm going to disengage. If it doesn't get worse, if it keeps getting worse or whatever, yeah. But it's been getting better. I feel a lot better now with the developments of this week, but we'll see. Um, Good thing the guy didn't tell you to quit your YouTube channel. I don't think he knew I had one. He knows now because he's seen all the links. But I think only about 10% of what happened to you is real hypnotism, and the rest is being hypnotized to believe a sort of false mythological framework about how hypnotism works, which misleads you. So I've never heard it worded that way, but I've heard that idea before, and I don't know. I'm not saying I disagree. I don't know. And in fact, you say real hypnotism, but just even regular hypnotism, what is that exactly? It's some kind of altered state of relaxed focus or something like that. There's different definitions, and people debate them. Yeah, so like that, I think that you got a couple ideas there, and semantically, I could see just going almost anywhere. This is fascinating. Can hypnosis and suggestion be done through mass media, movies, online postings? What we're seeing happening in the country now is reminiscent of mass psychosis. Absolutely, it can. Absolutely, it can. It's not as effective when you're not tailoring it to one person, but anything that puts you in an altered state, anything like TV on its own is mildly hypnotic, and that's why a lot of marketing is based on that. You go into this state where you're kind of passive, you're not engaged, you're sitting, you relax, and you stare. and the messages get in. Now, it's not as intense as when a hypnotist is doing it necessarily, because they can look and see, okay, this person should change their breathing or change their posture, or they need some kind of physical thing. Maybe, um, I was also thinking like religions, like if you go to a church or a mosque, you have chanting, everyone looks, there's a stained glass window, everyone's focused on one thing. It's an altered state, right? When you go into a church, it's not like the normal stimuli that you're in. And I'm not singling out to say churches are horrible or whatever, just like there's an element of that there. You see this with shamanism for sure. It's obviously mass rallies. I mean, there's no question that like the Nazis, right, famously, of course, a lot gets attributed to them, and not always with a good basis, but like, yeah, you do like a mass hypnosis. Now, how effective is that relative to one-on-one? Not necessarily as much, but you do 1 million people, and it's 10%, so that's 100,000 or whatever. So, yeah, I'm not familiar with MK Ultra. I know it. I've heard of it, and I know a little bit, but I'm not familiar with it. If not for you and Scott Adams talking about hypnosis, I wouldn't have believed it was possible. Yeah, I mean, I get this. I really, really understand the skepticism, because you just do not know what's going on in someone's head. And I did a demonstration on a beach a couple weeks ago, and it was all people I know. And I hypnotized a friend of mine, and it was just like a little show. And I did a couple things. I made him forget his name and his age, and I froze him to the ground. And one of the guys watching, who is a doctor, who's an ophthalmologist, and he knows me really well. We've talked a lot. I know he respects me as a serious individual, and he watched and he was like, "This is fake." He was like, "This is fake. You guys, he's just doing what you're asking to put on a show." And I'm like, that I understand people thinking that. I really, really do. That's not what's happening. I know when it happens to me. When the first thing there were suggestions and all that, but the first test, or convincer is another way to say it, is I was asked, try and open your eyes, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't open my eyes, and I was like, I'm hypnotized. And that was it. That was it. Like, for me. So, I would like to learn how the process works. What's the best way to get started? So, there's a really good book that I do recommend people called Reality is Plastic by Anthony Jacquin. I don't believe you can read it. I think you have to get an audiobook, which I did, and it's very accessible and very practical. He touches on the theoretical stuff, like he acknowledges where there are theoretical debates without spending a lot of time trying to resolve them, because honestly they haven't been resolved yet, so that would almost be pointless. But that's a very simple, quick, but like relatively thorough and good. I learned a lot from that book. So Reality is Plastic by Anthony Jacquin is the place to go. So then why don't people do this to make people a certain political ideology? Well, maybe they do. Bill Clinton is supposedly well-trained in hypnosis. The thing is, the results fade. So like, I could sit somebody down and be like, you're a Democrat or a Republican. But in 2 or 3 weeks, that's going to fade. So, like, practically speaking, that would be very difficult to, like, keep it going. So, there are limitations, right? Yeah. If you didn't stop this guy, how far do you think he would take it? I honestly don't know. Like, I honestly don't know. I think that there were logistical limitations to what he could do, but I'm not sure. So, the thing is, the turn on becomes the power itself, and it's just about how much can you have, and then it's like, well, where does this end exactly? The other thing, though, I mean, he could have gotten bored. He could have, who knows? I don't know. I really don't know. He obviously, I felt betrayed because, I go out, I find this guy, I befriend this guy, I hypnotize him, I befriend him, I hand him over to my master, who I basically worship, and then he steals him from me, basically. And it's like, yep, he's mine now, fuck you. And, like, I was completely used. Like, he completely used me. Even just saying that, like, it's the only, like, way to describe what was happening. I was completely disposable. he had fun, but like what I wanted or might have wanted didn't matter. And that was the thing too, is I didn't ask him to be a slave. I didn't say I've always had a fantasy to be a slave. I have people ask me that. I have people message me like, I would love to be a slave. The more control you have over me, the better. I find that so hot. Okay, that's a very wide ethical brush to paint with. But that's not what I said. So different story. Being hypnotized sounds a lot like how I imagine boomers feel when they watch TV. It's not that far off. Do you think Stefan Molyneux uses hypnotizing techniques? It's a really good question. I mean, he's kind of creepy and all that, but I don't know. I really don't know if he's never mentioned it. I feel like if you had, he's such a narcissist that if he had that skill, I think he would brag about it. So I'm gonna guess that he doesn't, but that doesn't mean that there isn't also some overlap. So I don't know. The distinction between 10% real and 100% real is immaterial if the 10% was spent making you believe the other 90%. Yeah. What if we're all hypnotized, but our programming includes forgetting it happened to us? That's super common. I'm having reread what happened. I'm convinced that I had programming done that I just do not remember, and I didn't think I was missing stuff. I thought I remembered everything, and now it's obvious that I was being given triggers that were happening that I don't remember. And when the deprogramming, I got to listen to. I mean, we insisted that we listen to the deprogram. And there was a lot of stuff there that I was like, this, I don't remember any of this, and I feel like it's very likely that it was used on me. Paulo, why would you ask a question like this right now? Jesus Christ. Could mass hypnosis be used for good? I mean, I'm not going to say it can't. I haven't really thought about it. And like, it's so like contextual and circumstantial. I don't know. I feel like that gets into meta issues of like, let's say hypothetically it was, but then that kind of power shouldn't exist, right? There's this idea that like, well, you could use it for good, and like, yeah, and you could use it for evil. So you can't have an ability or a technology and say, well, let's assume that it's just used for good. You have to weigh what if it's used for evil or ill ends, or not even evil, but like misused, used in an ineffective way or whatever. So I think that would heavily complicate that question. Let's see. Yeah. So watching your live stream, and in retrospect, actually, it is true that you did kind of conspicuously begin talking about hypnosis quite a bit and would bring it up a lot until I asked you to try it out. Interesting to look at. Yeah, that was 100%, like 100% obsessed. I think Vosh could be hypnotized into not being a communist. I wouldn't want to get close enough to him to do it. Please post the stream on YouTube when you are done. I missed the main part. I typically always post my streams, so it should be there. All right, guys. I just had to put this out there. Like, this has been weighing me down this week, especially. There's been this pall. Like, I knew something was wrong for the last couple months, and I didn't really know for sure until this week. Actually, late last week. There was a couple clues late last week that something was definitely, that my worst fears were probably true. And it was verified on Monday, and like I said, it was, it's been crazy. And look, like, I was definitely victimized, and I also became a victimizer. No, not everybody I hypnotized got victimized. Like, I didn't, do everything to everyone or whatever, but like my intentions were suspect. Let's just say that. So thanks, Hardy87. It there will be more on this at some point when it's a better time. A lot of this stuff, like I said, I can't go into a whole lot of specific details, and so I won't. But this was absolutely awful and terrible, and it's scary to see what you can do. It's scary how you feel when you actually have that kind of power, right? And that kind of power. It's not like supernatural. It's not quite at that level, but it's like getting there. It's getting there a little bit. It's not like the movies. You can't do it to everybody. You can't do it that quickly. You got to put in some time, but you can do it. You can do a lot. And when you look into someone's eyes and you see, I can erase their memories or completely change the way that they think with a snap, shit gets real. Shit gets real when that happens. Can we get a quick summary? Got here late. There wasn't a time schedule, so no. So it's funny that I'm just now like realizing that I was brainwashed, because that was actually the word that we used. Programming, brainwashed, hypnotized, mind control. All these things were used repeatedly, and I would even say it. Yes, I love to be brainwashed. Please brainwash me more. And it was, okay, I'm going to brainwash you now. Here's your program. I'm like, thank you, sir. You're the best. I appreciate it. I would even say stuff like, I know that what I'm thinking is a program from you, and I don't care. I still like it. And that is exactly what I said in the video in May. So you can see, if you look at those two videos, you can see like a shift that happens. And this is another shift that's happening. But yeah, it's like, see if I can do this. You guys watch this. I think I've done this once or twice. So if you had asked me, prior to March, I'd never been hypnotized. Have you ever been in a trance? I'd be like, no. And now, like, I can do it so easily. So, the first time you do this process and you talk and you listen and you focus and all that. And now all I have to do is think about trance. Right? So, like, yeah, what the fuck indeed, dude? What the fuck indeed? Any chance your friend is also under someone else's control? Yes, there's a chance of that. There's a chance that the guy who hypnotized me is under someone else's control. There's a good chance that that's even true. What? What's all the bros? You guys never seen REM? It's crazy. I can feel it now. I can feel like I recognize the song. It's so weird to like do it and to feel it, because you also know that it's you. Like what's happening. Like there's things, your whole body relaxes. You start to drool. You feel my shoulders drop. Yeah. Now, it took. When did I start being able to do that? I started to be able to do that in like mid-June. Mid-July. Like I could never do that before, and now, like at first I would try and hypnotize myself. Stare at the finger, and like concentrate. And like you don't have to concentrate. All you have to do is think about trance. So like, it's been crazy. It's been crazy. You should feel when you get actually hypnotized by a tist, that's even more. And that's not the only thing that happens. Oh, good. Anything that has the potential to compromise your agency should be avoided like the plague. So that's a really good comment. This was making me think. I was thinking about this today. Um, there's this debate between determinists and free will people, and I'm not going to answer that debate right now. But I think a lot of that debate is a non sequitur, because the determinists, they don't all do this, but will come and say, well, determinism, therefore, government policy A, B, or C. And the problem is that, like, whatever metaphysical determinism there is, we don't understand it anywhere near well enough to make policies that assume that we know everything that's going to happen. And so people really should respect others' autonomy. People really need that autonomy because we don't have omniscience. Right? We kind of need omniscience to really make determinism an actionable philosophy, and we don't. Whether or not, even if determinism is true, we lack omniscience. So people really should be given and allowed to keep their autonomy. They need it for their own well-being, and frankly, as a free market capitalist, for the well-being of everybody else. Like, I'm better off if everybody else is free, and I'm better off if I'm free. And where does hypnosis fall in that genre? Well, it doesn't. I don't think it has no place, but you have to be careful what you're used it for. Do you think the experience of hypnotizing someone in the power imbalance is itself corrupting and encourages sociopathic behavior? It's definitely tempting. It's definitely a temptation, and I would say, yeah, it's corrupting. I don't know if it necessarily will lead to sociopathic behavior, but it definitely could. Like, what I would do is I would sit people down and I would say, what are you comfortable with? What are you not comfortable with? Are there any things you want to try? Are there any things you definitely don't want to do? And a lot of times people say, I want to quit vaping or work out more. I'm like, okay, we can do that. But they might say, I don't want to do anything sexual, or I don't want to bottom, and I'd be like, fine. And I always would respect those things. If someone said they didn't want to bottom, I wouldn't top them, right? I wouldn't have sex with them. But and in point of fact, I never had sex with anybody while they were hypnotized. But what I would do was test it, and so I would hypnotize somebody, and I would say, I don't want to bottom, and I'll say, I'll get to the point. You don't do it right away, but you wait. You do these little games. Aha, I made you laugh at I made you laugh at the word hypnosis, or I made you think your name is, Billy or whatever. And then I'd be like, close your eyes. And like, when I count to 3 and snap my fingers, you want me to top you so bad, you'll beg for it. That's all you'll be able to think about. You'll just want my dick inside you so bad. And 1, 2, 3. And they would motherfucking beg. Legs spread. And I would be like, well, maybe you only want that because I hypnotized you. I'm like, I don't fucking care. Do it. And I wouldn't. I would be like, okay, sleep and put them back. But where does that lead? Right? So far, I've never crossed that line. But, like, who's to say I never will or never could? And the temptation is, really there. Another time, a guy didn't really set any limits like that, but he did say, well, I have lunch at 11. I got to be there at 11. And I was like, you don't really want to have lunch with your friends. You just want to hang out with me for the rest of the day. And he's like, yeah, fuck them. I'll just spend the day with you. I was like, yeah, in fact, you're going to come and live with me now. And he's like, yeah, in fact, I think I'll come live with you. Like, and it's like, whoa. Like, and again, I didn't actually do it. I got him, I made sure he got there in time for his lunch and everything was cool. But like, you're playing with it. You're testing. I'm constantly pushing to see how much I can get away with. What can you make them do? Like, and part of that's just like curiosity. Like, what can you make them do? Like, where are the limits, and why are there limits here? Like, I had a weird thing with a guy who, like, I could blank out like, it was a Friday. I could blank out Friday, and then I could blank out Thursday, but I couldn't blank out Wednesday or Tuesday. And I was like, geez, what the hell? Why can I, like, and I kept trying and trying, and, eventually worked until I got the whole week or whatever, but, like, why, like, it's fascinating. So the trigger is just thinking about going into the trance. So there's a saying that I really like, so in the 19th century, they thought that what got you into a trance was visual fixation. And that's true in the sense that, like, you could definitely use visual fixation to generate a trance. And this is where the pocket watch or the metronome or the spiral, those are all things that play on that. And those are very truly effective means, especially if you're kind of new at it. And so when I would do people on the phone and they can't see anything, they can't, like, if I'm there, I'll be like, stare at my finger, stare in my eyes, or stare at the wall. But if I'm not there, I'll just, on the phone, I'm like, okay, what's on the opposite wall? Like, oh, I have a TV, like, okay, stare at the top corner of the TV. Just focus, like 2 laser beams. It helps if you look up a little bit, so looking at the floor versus the ceiling helps. But the thing is, you don't have to do that. In fact, the way that I initially learned wasn't that at all. The way I initially learned is I would just close my eyes completely, and you focus on their voice. Just close your eyes. You guys can even do this right now. Just close your eyes. Right? And that puts you in an altered state of mind. Just by closing your eyes, your mind is in an altered state. Because you're so visual typically that you can actually focus on things you can't normally focus on when your eyes are open. So now that your eyes are closed, you can just put all of your attention on my voice and just listen to my voice and let my words guide your thoughts as you go deeper and deeper. And take a deep breath. Just take a nice deep breath. And when you exhale, when I snap my fingers, just double your relaxation in 3, 2, 1. That's right. Just relax. Deep breath. Every muscle relax. Your muscle and your mind as you focus on my voice. Mind completely open. Your eyes completely closed. Just listening to my words. And alert and awake in 1, 2, 3. Right? So you don't have to do anything with actual visual stuff. It helps, but it's not necessary. When I learned to do it myself, I did use visual things, and I would find something on the wall and I would stare at it. Right? But now I just have to think about it. I can do it anytime. Trance. Right? So, if your brain needs to be trained. At some point, you are able to do it like that. It took me a couple months. I wasn't even trying to do that, though, so if I had worked on it, I probably could have done it sooner. Your personality seems different, too. Different from when and different how. I'd be interested. I don't know how long you've known me, so I'd be curious to hear your thoughts. It's like drug addiction. Beyond the poor health outcomes, the real kicker is being possessed by your habits such that you become capable of what would normally violate your principles. Yeah, so there's nothing pharmacological in it, and it's not like inherently unhealthy, but I absolutely see what you're saying with the rest of that. And I stopped going to the gym, I stopped doing jiu-jitsu, it's all, and that was part of what broke me out of it. It's like, wow, I really have changed. And I will never be the person I was on April 8th, the day before. I will never be that guy again. Like, and it's not necessarily always a bad thing, but like, oh, hey, Arthur, it's good to hear from you. Thank you. And then you start looking back on that period and say, who the hell was that person? Menthol, that's what I was doing this week. I was looking back at who I was in April and May, June, July, and like, holy shit. Like, this is fucked up. I did some fucked up shit. I said some fucked up things. Like I said, none of this is criminal, right? Like, I like, this stuff can all get posted, and I'm fine in terms of like criminality, but like, it is some dark shit. And the the power play and like it is like predator. I am like a hunter going for this. Like I'm going for your mind, and like I will take it. You know, I want to do it. Like that. There wasn't nothing there before. That would be a lie. But now suddenly that all has teeth. It went from a fantasy to a reality very quickly in just a couple weeks, really. And coping with that, I mean, that's going to be the biggest problem. Like, I can't undo what I know. I know how to do it. It's been like real. I mean, it's fascinating. You're super. When you're a hypnotist and you're hypnotizing somebody, you pay really close attention to everything about their face and their breathing and their eyes and their lips and what they say and what their body language and are they relaxed or they, everything, their heart rate. Like you get. I mean, I'm not doing this to everyone all the time because I'm not trying to hypnotize anyone all the time. But like you just get super attentive on that stuff, and like every little muscle on the face and the neck and everything, and like I don't think that's those are all cool skills to have and very interesting, and you learn a lot. I learn a lot every time I hypnotize somebody. I learn a lot about that person. I learn about people generally. I've learned more about people in these last months than I don't know ever. Like how they think, what they do, what makes them tick, what are anticipating, what they're thinking, how they're feeling, what they're going to do, how they're going to react. These are all like skills that I've been honing now, like for this hobby, whatever program, whatever you want to say. So, what are the resources to learn about the process? How would you defend themselves against it? So, again, I recommend the book Reality is Plastic by Anthony Jacquin. By the way, the first line in that book is, a hypnotist is ethical, which I thought was a tell in a certain way. And the defenses are, I mean, the number one defense is to not just let yourself be hypnotized by anyone and under any circumstances. If you do it with somebody you know really well and that you trust, and you have witnesses, that's a huge one. Or if you have witnesses or you can record it, say you're going to get hypnotized on Skype from somebody. I would record the whole session and then watch it after. And there might be stuff that you simply don't remember. I think if I had done that, it might have helped me a lot. Because if I had gone back and found that I was getting all these triggers put in, I would have been like, whoa, calm down, The other thing is having somebody witness it, have somebody be with you. Beyond that, I mean, common sense. So one of the guys I hypnotized, I knew him before, not very well, but we had talked a couple times, and he said he seemed like a cool guy. He seemed very trustworthy, and I hypnotized him. I think he was the first guy I really, really hypnotized, and he had a great time. He's like, "Wow, that was amazing." And I was like, "Do you want to have a session with the guy who taught me?" And he was like, I see, I don't really know him, so no. And like that was a really prudent attitude on his part. The other thing you can do if you want to get way into it is like if you can actually have blocks put in. It's possible to be hypnotized and have mental blocks put in that are effective to some degree. I had blocks put in, right? When I wanted to step away from this, I had somebody put blocks in, and I think that they worked actually pretty well. Because before, anytime I talked to my former master, I would go into a trance. It would be like I would just constantly, and then I had the blocks put in, and I didn't feel that anymore. I felt fine. So that's if you're really hardcore, you can do that. But I think the most thing is just be common sense and avoid it if you don't trust them, if you don't know them. In certain contexts, it's fine. Like if you're at a stage show, you're in front of 100 people. Like what are they going to do? But like somebody on Skype that you've never met, don't do that. Trance state sounds a lot like meditation. It's the only difference that hypnosis is done by someone else. While meditation, you induce the state yourself. So it's the two things it's most often compared to are meditation and sleep. I think it's closer to sleep, but I can't actually quantify that. It is similar to both. It's a altered mental state. You are conscious, but super relaxed and hyper-focused. Your subconscious mind is somehow more accessible. So like normally, if you're fully awake and conscious and someone says you're hungry, you see a commercial for Domino's, you're like, I'm not really hungry, I just ate. If you're critical faculty is lowered though, and you're told you're hungry, you're like, oh, I actually feel hungry, right? This is exactly what's happened when you're hypnotized and someone tells you that, you laugh every time you hear a certain word or you can't move your hands, I can't pull them apart, I can't pull it apart. Like, so. At what point did you go from leave me alone, I like being a slave, to start waking up? It was in mid to late July, and it was a combination of factors. It was seeing how much I had changed. It was realizing that I was hallucinating and that I could be given amnesia, which meant I wouldn't be able to know what was real anymore, which I mean, you see the obvious implications of that. And I'm like, okay, am I comfortable being in a headspace where I don't know if these are my thoughts or somebody else's. I thought I was already getting programmed a lot and begin amnesia a lot, and I didn't know it. So I was underestimating how far along I was. I was farther along than I thought, and that's very common. As people think, I can stop it, I can control it, and like maybe, but people do overestimate their resistance and underestimate the potency in general. And indeed, some people are pretty safe. There are some people, 5 to 10% of people, it's very hard to hypnotize them. And those people are pretty safe. But you know what? It's like 80% of people think that they're in that 10%. And 70% of those people are wrong. So, like, you don't want to find out the wrong way that you're suggestible. There's no sure test. The more you do this, you do get better and better intuitions, but those intuitions are not always right. And if you haven't been doing it, you don't even have those intuitions. So, you don't want to assume. But yeah, it was a combination of realizing that my grasp of reality was going to greatly erode, because I knew, well, first of all, this is where I'm at now. In more time, I'll be even more suggestible and even more hallucinations and things like that. The hallucination was a fairly mild one, but still a legit one. And I was like, nope, that's it. And the other thing is, one of the hypnotists gave me a story to read, and he said, read it very carefully. And the story was about an evil hypnotist who would hypnotize other people and teach them hypnosis and then have them go out and recruit. And I was like a perfect match to those characters. And it was very, very unsettling. And so there was a period of a couple days where I couldn't sleep. I was like, I have a huge problem. And I decided I'm not going to get hypnotized anymore. And I had blocks put in. And I think that was in like mid or late July. Lots of things can corrupt your own moral decisions, including just being able to externalize your decisions to another authority or power, like within the learning experience. Yeah. And it would be easy for me to just go, look, I didn't do anything wrong. It was all the evil hypnotist. He did everything, and I was just his puppet. And that was explicitly what was said and what the programming was. However, I don't think that that kind of moral I don't think it should be treated exculpatorily. Like I feel like we have to have responsibility. So I'm not going to say it was all him. I am guilty of a lot. Now, we could debate how much or whatever, but it doesn't, I did a lot of stuff. I was the one ultimately hypnotizing these other people and brainwashing them. Like, I brainwashed people. I don't even know how many. Like, you really don't. I brainwashed friends, So, like, was I brainwashed myself to do that? Yeah, absolutely I was. But we've got to have responsibility at least be shared. I can't give it all to him. And so, like, I feel very guilty, and I think I should feel guilty. I think I did a lot of stupid, wrong things. I made a lot of mistakes, and again, there's no legal penalty here. Nothing I did was illegal, but like, ethically, morally, it was, I was getting in some very dark areas, let's say that. You're a bit more animated compared to some of those videos from much. Well, it's probably for all that, like, hey, look here, boop, finger, boop, boop, boop. Like, I do snap a lot more. So there's that. I don't know, dude. Are you sure you're free or you're not free? You want to go under when you see. Lol, funny. Funny. Nice rhymes. It's not, it doesn't rhyme though, that's not what makes it happen. If being hypnotized causes you to be vulnerable to future hypnotists, it seems like you don't want to be hypnotized even by friends or family. Well, Berkovich, but you missed the part where you can have blocks put in. And everyone I've asked says that they are reasonably effective, and in my personal experience, they were as well. So, and it's also like, do you want to die in a car accident? And the answer is probably no. But does that mean then you will never drive in a car? Because if you really never want to die in a car accident, you should just never drive in a car and never be on a road. Yes, there are dangers with hypnosis. This whole video is about them, okay? But there are good things about it too, and so it's not as simple. Now, if you look at the good things, like the values of hypnosis, and go, I'm not really interested in any of them, and so all I see is the downside. That's a perfectly rational decision for somebody to make. Have you ever heard the conspiracy theory that Sirhan was hypnotized into killing RFK? If yes, what do you think of it? I've heard lots of. I've heard that there are conspiracies about him, that he was a Manchurian candidate or hypnotized or whatever else. There's lots of weird things about him. I'm not familiar with any of those conspiracy theories. In general, though, like, that wouldn't surprise me. That seems totally plausible. Like, my experience with all this, I wouldn't doubt it. This doesn't seem beyond the realm of possibility. This has totally changed my perspective on what is and isn't possible. Because if this is what you can do with just a person over Skype, imagine what you can do with pharmacological, and other kinds of physical simulation. I think that the amount of control that you could get with an investment in capital and research would be quite a bit more. And MK Ultra, what did they spend $15 million in 20 years studying this? So. And we had people doing stage shows 200 years ago that could do all these things that I'm talking about now. So, yeah, there's a drug. I forget the name, but it's called the street name is Devil's Breath. Yeah, I don't remember the name, but there's that, and that's just a natural thing. It's related to cocaine, but it's not cocaine. I've had to go and basically put a trigger warning on myself. I've had to go and contact everybody that I hypnotize and be like, look, this is what's going on. This is the danger. Here's what I've done. Here's what I can do. Here's what I was programmed to do. You should know all of that. And, there's some people I just straight up just said, you should block me immediately. There was one guy from Poland who I was like, you are too susceptible to me, and it's too easy for me to make you a slave. I've already done it twice, so thank you, and I'm sorry. Just block me and go from there. So, Orgasm's eyes again. The trans of The Last of Us 2 attacks. What? If a person commits a crime while under hypnosis, what should happen in your opinion? Should the criminal in question get off scot-free? Yeah, so that's a really good question. The problem is that it's not consistent in how well it works and what it's possible to do. So right now, legally, I'm hypnotized doesn't mean anything. if you commit a crime, let's say a minor crime, like you commit a burglary, and you say I got hypnotized to do this, and we can even prove that that's true, that's not a defense. Likewise, if you say he hypnotized me to do it, they're not in trouble. The only distinction would be if you commit a felony, and they might be able to say the person who hypnotized you, commissioned a felony to be done. If they told you to do it while you were hypnotized, it doesn't matter that you were hypnotized. Like that's the only thing. The problem with that is that the defendant will always have more than reasonable doubt, right? They can always say hypnosis is not that effective, and so you cannot blame the crime on the hypnotist because it doesn't always work. Because it doesn't always work, and it's not perfectly effective, not even close to perfectly effective. It's very powerful, it's pretty effective, but it's not 100% effective, and it doesn't work on everyone all the time. And so, in a case of reasonable doubt, that's your case, and that's fair. Like I totally get that. If there are ways to measure how how much you were controlled, that would be different. But we don't have ways to do that, really. I mean, like I do. Like I have tests. I know, like, okay, I know what this person will and will not do. Like, but they're not like scientific. So I think that if we could, then that would be a question that we could answer. We can't, and so we have to defer on the side of innocent until proven guilty kind of thing, because that really is where we want the incentives to lie. Yeah. You could also, I guess, charge them with conspiracy and be like, well, the two of them worked together. He gave them the idea, so whatever. How has this experience affected your willingness to go on exploring hypnosis? I still want to explore hypnosis. I'm like still super interested / borderline obsessed with it. I still, when I meet people, when I see people, I'm thinking, could I hypnotize this person? How would I do it? What would it be like? I'm curious how suggestible they are. I'm very, very reluctant to get hypnotized by anybody that I don't trust. So I've actually started teaching people that I know and trust to hypnotize me, right? Training people, like, you can hypnotize me, or just doing it myself. I feel comfortable doing it myself, and I actually think I should explore that more, because it's just like brain training anyway. If I can start to do that really well, it's not exactly the same. You're going into a trance and you are hypnotized, but you have to do it, you have to keep part of your conscious mind engaged, which gets in the way of how deep you can go. It's still valuable. It's definitely, dude, it's a thing. Like, you feel it, you're like, well, it's a thing. But like when you have a hypnotist, it's like you are, what would be the comparative advantage, or where, what, I'm going to turn my conscious mind off, and you can do all of that for me, and I can just be the unconscious mind, and you can just tell me what to think. And like, that's curiously liberating and euphoric at times. So I don't have to think. Right? Like, now here I'm inducing the trance, so I have to do it. So it's not the same level as I can, like, I will just totally switch off and go on autopilot and let you take care of everything. So it's not the same. So no, it's super fascinating, but I just have to be more careful. And I think also, to avoid the addiction getting too strong, I do have to like regulate how much I'm doing it. So like just today, I took it off my grinder. So my grinder said for months, interested in hypnotizing, let me know. And I would get messages every single day from people saying they were interested in it. And I'm not going to do that. I'm not advertising that anymore. And like, I have no immediate plans to hypnotize anyone, but like, I still think about it. I'm like, I'm going to try that. I want to try that. That would be a good thing to try. It's going to have this turn into status, at least temporarily. Does this explain Charles Manson? I got to read that book about MK Ultra and him, and then I'll get back to you on that. These are not orgasm eyes. Who orgasms with eyes like that? I don't orgasm with eyes like that. That's my orgasm eye. You guys want to see it up close and personal? What's a good camera angle? Like this? No, let's see. I don't know. Fuck it. It's hard with the way the lighting is. So yeah, I mean, it's just super fucking easy now. I like, it's not even like, can you all not do that? Like, if you tried to do that, could you not do that? Hmm. Sorry, this is actually related to what we're talking about. There's a theory that I mean, maybe, who knows? How about cults in general, propaganda in general? What, I mean, you want me to just talk about them? I mean, I don't know. Like, I'm sure some of them use hypnosis and some of them don't. Um, who knows? Maybe they do use it. You know, there we go. Die for the chosen people, sir. Stephen Koza. That was very anti-Semitic. What do you think about people comparing Timothy McVeigh to Lee Harvey Oswald? Do you think that's a fair comparison? Yeah, that's a good question. Definitely don't want to do it in this video, Cinefan. Well, they were both in the military, so that's fair. And there's evidence that both of them were still. I don't know about Oswald, but there's evidence that McVeigh was sheepdog and may have still been in the military, but I don't know. Um, I mean that the method of hypnosis is tapping into something fundamentally common with other brainwashing tactics. Um, I don't know if I'm going to answer your question here, but one of the things that I found the most interesting and curious is why why is this here? Like, is this just a random hack, right? This just happens to be there, or is there a design? Is there a reason that this exists? This ability, this state, and I don't know. The Bessie, have a good night. Thanks, Torque. Have a good night. Um, the trance part I can kind of get. So the first stage of hypnosis is going into a trance, and I can see why trances are potentially useful. Where you're just super focused on one thing and not everything else. So I imagine the example I always imagine is like a polar bear sitting at a breathing hole waiting for a seal, and it just wants to stare at that breathing hole, waiting for the seal. Because if it's looking around the seagull, it might miss its opportunity. So it makes sense for it to be totally focused on that one object. But that's only the first step in hypnosis. The part where like your critical faculty is lowered, but you're still able to communicate effectively with other people, and that they can then instruct you. I mean, the obvious like reason for that would be a form of social mind control. But so did we evolve that? We're a social species. Maybe that's part of it. And there are people who think, you know, shamanistic religions and all that is a way of the whole tribe gets together and they have a ceremony and they take drugs and they get all tired and whatever, and there's a mass trance and they all like use that to convey some kind of information. You know, there's something probably there, but it's not like well understood at all. You are hot. Who cares about philosophy? We're not even talking about philosophy. Keep showing off my eyes. I'm sorry. They're beautiful though, aren't they? Like, if anyone else can just do that but not be in a trance, let me know. I think there's the one test on the Rogan show, they said if you can look up and close your eyes if they blink. So if you look up and you get that flutter, then you're hypnotizable or highly hypnotizable. But even if you can blink without getting the flutter, that doesn't mean you can't be hypnotized, because I definitely have people who've done that. I started the video about Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Yes, she died. Everyone's known she's going to die for like 10 years. There'll be much to do about that in the future. Worry not, Stephen Koza. Or does that not stand for Ruth Bader Ginsburg? You guys think I should do a hypnosis through the screen video? That would be kind of fun. You can, and it scares people. Yeah, it does look quite demonic. It's funny because like when you do it, you don't actually like, you're not consciously controlling each flutter. It just kind of goes. Everything is a philosophy. Okay. Seems overly vague. Lemon Party, that may well be true. I would love to do a hypnosis through the screen, especially if it plays with our memories. All right. Well, there already are. I mean, there's a number of really good hypnosis through the screen videos out there. Oh my God, King David. No, wait for it to be uploaded. It's like the fifth person to ask. Listen, this is already an hour and a half long, guys. I think I want to call it good. I just wanted to get this off my chest a little bit. You know, I explained everything. This is crazy, though. This is a real thing. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll try and answer them. But yeah, I was legitimately, totally brainwashed, like explicitly, and going back and knowing the techniques now myself, I could see it happening, relive it, and be like, holy shit. Holy shit. Thanks, King David. I appreciate it. I always like compliments. I don't deny it. Thanks, Arthur. We should talk. It's been a long time. Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for watching, and be safe.